this agreed to, and I call the honourable member for Macquarie.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Look, this has been a long time coming, and I'm absolutely delighted that we're at this point now. And I will just make slight arrangements here with the because it's something that has been called for long and loudly from my community, and I thought it might be worth reflecting back on how this started and why we've got where we have today. For us, it goes back to a commitment in 2018. And that commitment was because the community was disaffected and didn't have confidence in the integrity of, quite frankly, some of the people who sit in this place and some of the people who work around this place. And more importantly, didn't have confidence in the decisions that had been made, that they were being made in the best interests of Australians. So we were very pleased in January 2018 to make that decision. Now, I think we all know that there was a commitment on both sides, but today demonstrates that only one side of government, of this parliament, those of us who are now in government, actually had enough commitment to follow through on the promises that we made. One of the things that I think is really key in how this process has happened is that we didn't say, here's a bill, take it or leave it. What we said to people was, here it is, we are happy to work through and discuss things. And so it is really notable that the recommendations of the Joint Select Committee on National Anti-Corruption Commission, that their report had 6 recommendations, and that we've agreed with all 6 recommendations, and that we've prepared government amendments to this bill that will be put to this place. And they include a few really key things. For me, one is that they'll extend protections to people who are assisting a journalist in their work as a journalist from being compelled to identify or provide information that would assist to ascertain an informant's identity. And look, I think this matters to me, having been a journalist in the early part of my career. We do need to ensure that protections like that are available. Another one of the amendments expressly provides that the Commission is able to begin an investigation on their own initiative. I think that is something that will give people confidence, that there's a real separation in terms of how it works. And being an independent organisation is really key to not just its effectiveness, but to the trust that people have in it. And after all, that's what this is about. We're restoring trust in a system that accounts for multiple decisions all the time that get made that affect people's lives, that improve their community. But it also means the system's accountable for how those decisions are made. One of the other amendments that will be put is to require the Commissioner to advise a person of the outcome of a corruption investigation if the Commissioner has investigated the conduct of that person and has formed the opinion or made a finding that the person has not engaged in corrupt conduct. So we'll be very pleased to put those amendments to the bill, and as I say, I think that reflects a genuine willingness on this side of the House to want to see a piece of legislation that has wide support across the parliament, because this is something that we want to see sustained. We are the last jurisdiction to have an anti-corruption commission. The states are way ahead of us, and what that's allowed us to do is look at what's worked in states most effectively, to look at some of the concerns there might be about the operation and to come to a very well thought through piece of legislation. And I really want to commend the Attorney-General for the work he's done. He has long held a commitment around this, and I know he will be very pleased to see this debate progressing as this sitting week goes on. I should also note that there was a Parliamentary Joint Committee on Human Rights that looked at this legislation, and that the government has agreed or agreed in part to the first 6 recommendations that that committee made and notes the final recommendation. And there was a third scrutiny of this legislation, and that was the Senate Standing Committee for the Scrutiny of Bills. And again, the government agrees with 6 of the 8 recommendations, and that's been updated in the explanatory memorandum, and we note 2 of the recommendations in that. So let's look at where we are. We have a bill that's amended because of our commitment to legislate a powerful, transparent and independent National Anti-Corruption Commission. Now, we said we'd do it by the end of the year, and I know there were people who thought couldn't be done, but what this shows is our willingness to work hard, to consult in a detailed way and to progress things, not to sit on them, to make them happen. The Albanese government's been committed to integrity, honesty and accountability from day one. And this is a cornerstone piece of legislation for us. This is a cornerstone to restoring public trust and to strengthening the standards of integrity in this federal government sphere. The bill gives full effect to the design principles that were taken to the federal election. We knew in the lead up to the federal election what it needed to have, and we've stayed true to that. It also draws on the best elements of the state and territory anti-corruption commissions and laws. And I just want to reflect back on the lead up to the election and the sorts of things that people said to me about how significant and important having this piece of legislation and creating a National Anti-Corruption Commission was. I had Jade from Currajong Heights who said to me, and this picks up themes that were totally consistent, I'm writing to let you know how important the establishment of an anti-corruption commission is and that it is past due. The decline in the faith of our democratically elected leaders it has diminished, in my opinion, over the last few years. I'm disgusted by some areas of the press who support actions of so many in the federal government. From my perspective, it's important for our parliament to be open and transparent, and that reflects the view that people felt there was not sufficient transparency. Jan from South Windsor says, I'm absolutely in favour of a federal ICAC which has teeth and is retrospective. And then we have Nerali from Katoomba who says, everyone I know supports a strong federal integrity commission and not the watered-down version proposed by the previous government. And hearing people say that they're actually having conversations about it, you know, in my many, many years as a journalist and then in working in business before coming to politics, I have never heard an integrity commission be discussed as much as it was in the last couple of years. And I do think that that is partly because of the performance of the previous government, and that was picked up by Bruce. And Bruce from Lawson said to me, the appalling performance of the previous government reinforced to the broad community how an integrity commission is vital to a healthy, functional democracy. He saw that it was critical that, given we had one government, that we take the opportunity to make a lasting improvement on the good government of our country for many years to come, and that's exactly what this bill will do. So let's just go through some of the details of it. It does provide the Commission with broad jurisdiction to investigate serious or systemic corrupt conduct across the Commonwealth public sector. It has the power to investigate ministers, parliamentarians and their staff, statutory office holders, employees of all government entities, contractors and contracted service providers. It will have the discretion to commence inquiries on its own initiative or in response to referrals from anyone. It will be able to investigate both criminal and non-criminal corrupt conduct, and conduct occurring before or after its establishment. So there are those key principles that we're committed to. Now, defining corrupt conduct is central to the Commission's jurisdiction, and it is consistent with the key elements of existing definitions at the state and territory level and in the Commonwealth Law Enforcement Integrity Commission Act of 2006. The definition encompasses conduct by a public official that involves an abuse of office, a breach of public trust or misuse of information. It also includes conduct by any person that adversely affects the honest or impartial exercise of a Commonwealth public official's functions. And as I said, we've accepted the Joint Standing Committee's recommendations covering corruption of any other kind will be removed from the bill, and we're very confident that the amended definition of corrupt conduct will enable the Commission to effectively investigate any form of serious or systemic corrupt conduct that's referred to it. Other conduct that could adversely affect public administration, such as external fraud, will continue to be dealt with by existing integrity commissions. So this will add rather than take away. The Commissioner will have a full suite of powers similar to those of a Royal Commission. The Commissioner will be able to use these powers to undertake an investigation if they're of the opinion that it could involve serious or systemic corrupt conduct. Hearings are a key part of it. The Commissioner will be able to hold public hearings if satisfied that this is in the public interest and exceptional circumstances justify doing so. The default position is that hearings will be held in private. In terms of reporting at the end of the investigation will provide transparency and also support the Commission's prevention and education function, because that is another key part of this. To be able to educate in order to prevent corruption is really key. It's one thing to catch it afterwards, but to really do something constructive for the sake of our democracy is to be able to educate and prevent. The Commissioner will be able to make findings of corrupt conduct, but not of criminal liability. Criminal liability can only be determined by a court. So this legislation respects those existing jurisdictions. The Commissioner will be required to provide procedural fairness by ensuring that those who are subject of a critical finding, opinion or recommendation in a report are afforded an opportunity to respond. And as I've said, the Commissioner would be required to notify a person of the outcome of a corruption investigation if they've investigated and have formed the opinion or made the finding that the person has not engaged in corrupt conduct. And that is really important for people to really be able to draw a line under that sort of investigation. I want to talk a little bit in the time that I have about the prevention and education functions. So the Commission does have a mandate to undertake corruption prevention and education functions, and this includes undertaking public inquiries to examine corruption risks and vulnerabilities and the measures that are there to prevent corruption. So really able to look at what is in place and see if that is effective enough. The Commission will provide guidance and information to support the public sector so that they clearly understand the concept of corrupt conduct, and so they're able to identify and address vulnerabilities. This work will be informed by the insights the Commissioner draws from the investigations it undertakes and the intelligence that it is gathering. Deputy Speaker, I'm going to finish by speaking about the independence of this organisation. That is fundamental to it being a credible organisation within the broader community. The independence of the Commission is going to be secured in a number of ways. It will be able to conduct investigations of its own initiative or in response to referrals. Agency heads will be required to report any corruption issue in their agency to the Commission if they suspect it could be serious or systemic. And the appointment of the Commissioners and Deputy Commissioners will be subject to approval by the Parliamentary Joint Committee, and the appointees will have security of tenure comparable to a federal judge. These are the measures, these are the fundamental elements that we're very confident are going to change this country for the better, and I look forward to it having wide support in this parliament.